be translation issues. I had a couple of, well, not more than a couple, numerous emails right now saying, well, the Bible is clear, the King James version of the Bible, and the other versions, especially like the New King James, they're very similar in translations. Folks, let me tell you something. The new, Jim, pardon me for interrupting here, but I just want to make this clear.
No, please.
The new, just for those people who believe, for example, that the King James and the New King James version are the same or very similar, close. For example, the New King James version of the Bible omits the word Lord 66 times. The word God is omitted 51 times. The word heaven is omitted 50 times. Do you want me to go on? The word hell is omitted 22 times. The word damnation is completely taken out. The word devils is completely taken out. So those of you out there, and many Christians who think, well, wait, New King James Version, okay, I can use it. Well, think about that. And there are many other aspects to that version, but I won't get into that, take up the guest time. I'm not going to do that. And the other thing, too, many Christians, and Jim, I believe this to be perhaps one of the most important aspects of what you're talking about the murder versus kill. Many Christians today, including the clergy response teams, that I've heard will say, well, wait, you've got to lay down your guns, turn in your guns. Romans 13, the whole thing, we have to be passive because that as we are instructed by God. And I don't think there's anything in my Bible that tells me that I've got to sit back. And this is a pet peeve of mine, Jim, so I'm sorry. But, I have Christians saying, well, wait a minute. As a Christian, you can't really defend yourself. And if your wife is being raped by ISIS or whatever, and your family's being ravaged and whatever, you just kind of have to, that's God's will, or you just have to deal with it. No, I don't believe that to be the case. But see, Jim, isn't it kind of like, that is part of the deception, in my view. So, okay. Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
I totally agree.
All right.
I totally agree. We could take up a whole program, I think, talking about that. But as a Texan, when I'm told to love my enemies, then I take that to mean if they're really bad. I mean really, really bad. I'm not talking about somebody you don't like or somebody who says something that offends you. I'm talking about murderers, rapists, the really bad of the bad. My idea, if you love them, then you kill them and you send them right on up to that big judgment in the sky. And it's not up to us to judge, but we can certainly put them in front of God a little quicker.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, I bumped you off track. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, well, back to the story. So Moses comes down, and he throws down the Ten Commandments, and he's mad because they have taken the gold, made it into a golden calf, because they don't understand the science and the technology that he had at hand. And in fact, in Exodus 32, it says, as he came near the camp and he saw the calf and the dancing, Moses' anger burned hot. And he threw the tablets out of his hand, foot of the mountain, and he took the calf which they had made and burnt it with fire and ground it to a powder and made the people of Israel drink it. Okay, now think about this for a minute. If he melts down gold and makes the people drink it, he's going to kill them, right? Because you can't drink molten gold. But he ground it to a powder, and he made the children of Israel drink it. And that's because he knew the secrets handed down from the Anunnaki through Abraham and passed along through the Egyptian mystery schools. And Moses was thoroughly grounded and schooled in all of that. And we now think we even know where it came from. In 1904, the famous British archaeologist Sir William Petrie discovered on Mount Sinai in the southern Sinai Desert, which is also known as the Mount of Moses. He found what he said was an ancient Egyptian temple, and in there was a smelting process, a smelting operation. And when they lifted up the flagstones, they found a lot of white powder. But this was 1904. They didn't know what it was. They had no idea. And the desert winds came and just blew it all away, and nobody paid much more attention to it. But I think this was evidence of ancient technology that that was being used. Now, before we invaded Iraq, now this brings us up to Iraq. Before we invaded Iraq, even the mainstream media was telling us that Saddam Hussein believed himself to be the reincarnated King Nebuchadnezzar. Well, okay, if that's the case, then I think we need to take a quick look at what was King Nebuchadnezzar up to. Well, we know that he built a structure out of gold, all right? Now, again, we have a problem with translations because it's come down to us in the Bible as a fiery furnace. But obviously it wasn't a fiery furnace because people would go in it, they come out of it, they get sick, they might die, but it wasn't burning people up. So he had a bit of this ancient technology, but he wasn't able to make it work properly. So what did he do? He went into Palestine, he found the three Hebrew priests, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, brought them to Babylon, and he said, okay, you guys are high priests, and you probably have knowledge passed down through the Kabbalah and the Torah, and I want you to go in, I want you to see if you can't make that gold structure work. And they said, well, wait a minute, you're not our king, you don't believe in our God, we're not going to work for you. So he said, well, look, I'll tell you what, he said, I'm going to throw you in that thing, and you're either going to make it work or you're going to die. Now, interestingly enough, they didn't just grab them and throw them in. In the Bible, it says that they donned their hats, coats, and other garments. Well, now, what does that mean, and why should we care? To me, I'm thinking perhaps they put on some sort of anti-radiation suits or whatever. But anyway, they put them in the structure. Nebuchadnezzar doesn't even want to go near it because he thinks it's dangerous. So he hollers out to his minions and he said, are those three priests in there? And they said, yes, O king. In fact, there's a fourth person in there. Now, oops, wait a minute. So he's created a gold structure, apparently created an energy field, and now instead of three people, there's four people in it. And he said, well, who's the fourth? And they said, a son of God. And that's the last we hear of that. We don't know who that was, where he came from, but it smacks of them creating some sort of energy field, which could then become like a portal or a stargate or whatever you call it, and you could move through it because first there's three, then there's four. And that's the end of the story. And so we don't know who that was or how that was or what that was, but it smacks of ancient advanced technology. And what we do know is that King Nebuchadnezzar was so impressed that he put the three Hebrew priests in charge of Babylon. All right? So now we come up to present time, and we find that Nebuchadnezzar believes himself the reincarnated Nebuchadnezzar, and he was trying to rebuild Babylon, and he was having French and German archaeology teams going all over Iraq, digging and coming up with more and more of the artifacts and of the tablets and of the information that had been laying under the sands there ever since the time of the Anunnaki. And then all of a sudden, we've got to invade Iraq on false pretenses. And in April of 2003, even though at that the International Atomic Energy Commission said Saddam Hussein does not have weapons of mass destruction or a nuclear bomb, our own weapons inspector, Hans Blick, said no, they don't have any weapons of mass destruction. But President George W. Bush said, I don't want to hear any of that. We're attacking. And we launched troops into Iraq in April of 2003. Now, Doug, what's interesting to me is because I'm an Army veteran. I know about military tactics and strategy. You set an objective, you capture your objective, you consolidate your holdings, your winnings, and once you're prepared, you move on to the next objective. We didn't do that. We made a beeline for Baghdad, and we left the the rest of the countryside unpacified, and we left the weapons in the hands of the Iraqi army, which has still caused us trouble because some of those folks turned those weapons on us and became Al-Qaeda, which then morphed into the ISIL or ISIS. Okay, so what's the big deal about Baghdad? They rushed into Baghdad, and the Baghdad National Museum was looted. Thousands and thousands of objects.
Yes. Now, Jim, I'm sorry, buddy. I gotta stop you right there because we're at a hard break. But
right.
You know, this is what really caught my attention, and I had to rethink going back. And you really document this well in your book about the discoveries in Iraq, folks. This issue right here is kind of what pulled me into looking a little bit closer at what was going on exactly and precisely back in Iraq in 2003, what was found in 1999, or what was reported by ABC News back in 1999, that nearly 400 ancient Sumerian artifacts have been discovered. But we're going to hold that until we get back. It's just an amazing, when you look back, and again, past this prologue, in a lot of things that Jim is talking about here with respect to these artifacts and these findings. It's interesting when you look at it from just a different perspective than what we've been told, because we know that history has been revised. And anytime history is revised, there's history, his story, right? Folks, you're listening to Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Doug Hagmann running solo. Guest Jim Mars. His book, Our Occulted History. Of course, he's got Rule by Secrecy, The Rise of the Fourth Reich, and many others, including Crossfire. We'll be right back. Stay right where you're at.
Hello, everyone. This is Joe Charles, the guy whose voice is heard announcing for the Hagmann and Hagmann Report right here on YouTube and across the Global Star Radio Network. There have been many people wondering whose music is being played during those breaks. Well, you guessed it. And we're very pleased to announce that all that music and 11 brand new songs from the CD New Jerusalem is set for release on April 10th for download on iTunes. That means you can help support my ministry and be blessed by this awesome, inspiring recording. I have been fortunate to work with some phenomenal musicians from around the world that helped us put this recording together in the studio. Simply go to joecharlesmusic.com and click on the iTunes link, or if you'd rather have a CD, we'll send one right out to you. Just leave me your email and we'll get right back to you. And thanks to Doug and Joe Hagmann for making this all possible. God bless.
Reporting on what the mainstream media won't, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on the Global Star Radio Network.
Exposing the New World Order, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on